Welcome to Money Secrets with Bill and Mike.
I'm Bill Alexander.
And I'm Mike Tove. Hey Bill, you know, I have had several clients recently come to me talking about how they want to buy a new car. And the challenge with that is, well, as you've said, it's not an investment, and if they have limited financial resources, not probably the best use of their money.
Well, I think it's important that we talk about one of the most important purchases that every family has to make, and that is purchasing a vehicle. So
Right.
there clearly are some money secrets when it comes to purchasing a vehicle.
And we're going to come right back and we're going to talk about some secrets. Hey, welcome back. And so, Bill, our topic today, I got to do the voice. We're going to be talking about a new car.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Limited time offer.
Yeah, exactly.
This deal is going to go away if you don't buy your car today.
But seriously, you know, one of the jokes about buying any car is that as soon as you drive the thing off the lot, it depreciates fast.
No question about it. That's when people lose most of the money in terms of a car purchase. You know, there's some insurance commercials about the fact that if you're in an accident soon after you buy your car,
Yeah.
the insurance company only gives you about 80% or
Right.
less of what it cost you to purchase that car.
Correct.
And but I mean, that is a statement in terms of the loss you take when you drive the car off of the lot.
But you said it going in, is that it's an emotional thing. And so people say, well, I don't want to have a car that somebody else has driven. And I understand that. There's some validity to it. But there are still a couple of things to consider, all right? So first off, if you absolutely, positively do not want to have a car that anybody else has driven, except maybe the guy that took it off the truck and the people that test drove it around the lot and a few other sundries.
Right.
Are there any techniques?
Well, I think there are some techniques, and the first thing I would say is the fact that you have to recognize that there are limits with brand new cars. You know, that's something that unfortunately persists. So just because you purchase a brand new vehicle with no miles on it, or 1 or 2 miles, doesn't mean that you're not going to be buying trouble. And so it's just a recognition that if you can find a reliable used car, that's an option. But if you know that you want to purchase a brand new car, one of the things to at least recognize is when should you buy it? And
Right.
part of that is real simple. You can get a better deal if you're a negotiator the last day of the month. Take any month, but the last day of the month is when the new car dealers are basically trying to make their quota, and it's also the day, or when the day is over, that's when the salesmen add up all their sales to where they get paid. And so the last day of the month is always the best day to get your best deal.
Well, the other thing is that if you're buying the car in the fall, after next year's model, because the new models come out before the year is over.
No question about it.
So if we are sitting here in 2017 and you get to September and the 2018 models have rolled out, you can still buy a 2017
A brand
vehicle,
new one.
a brand new one, and get a better deal on it, because now it is technically last year's car, even though it really isn't.
Right. Well, you are taking a loss on the depreciation because if you buy last year's model, even though it's brand new, there is a greater depreciation on it when you drive off the lot.
Sure.
And you just have to recognize
Right.
that. Actually, for a certain group of people, purchasing a brand new car can be a better deal. And that includes those people who drive very few miles. In other words, they don't put many miles on their car. They know they don't drive that much. That's not like my family. But and so how do you do that? Well, for those who don't drive many miles, a lease can actually save you a great deal of money because, in fact, most of the advertising about how low this price is on a monthly basis is typically a lease price rather than a purchase price. And with a lease, the typical lease is you drive a car with a monthly payment for 3 years. Sometimes it can be less or it can be more, but the price is based on how many miles you drive. So it might be 1,000 miles a month, or it could be less. And the fewer miles you're willing to accept, the lower your payment will be, because when you turn your lease car back in, what you pay or the discount you get is based on the number of miles that you drive. So those folks who, say, for instance, drive less than 5,000 or 6,000 miles per year, a lease is actually an option that you should consider, because obviously it's safer, you have less problems, generally speaking, with a brand new car than you do with a used car. In other words, you don't really have to do much to it but drive it. You don't have to worry about the tires wearing out. You don't have to worry about mechanical failure over the first 3 years of a car. You know, as long as you get the oil changed occasionally, then you're in pretty good shape.
And then you get to turn it in after 3 years and get your next new one and keep on going.
And
so
of course, then there are some turn-in costs that a lot of folks don't realize exist with a lease car. In other words, you have to pay them to turn the car in. If you've driven too many miles, then there's a penalty that you have to pay, which you need to know about. And also, if your tires are fairly worn, they make you replace the tires, or there's a big penalty there with a lease car. So there are a number of things that you need to know about if you're going to lease a car that makes a really big difference. But for those folks who drive very few miles, now for seniors who are retired, buying a new car and keeping it for 15 years might be less expensive, a better deal than a lease. But for those who like to trade every 3 to 4 years, then a lease car, if you drive few miles, is actually your best deal.
So let's come back in just a minute, because I want to talk about the other side of the coin. How do you buy a car without having to pay the full sticker price? And there's a couple of tips there. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. So we're talking about cars today.
It's an important topic.
It is. I actually own several.
Well, most of us do. And so Mike, I know that you have some really good tips that you share with your clients. So tell us some of the tips that you have.
One of the things that I tell clients, and it's a surprise, they don't realize this, is if you want to buy a car and you really don't want to pay full sticker price, but at the same token, you want a car that, if it's not exactly new, is as close to new as possible, buy a car from one of the big name car rental places. Okay? Here is why. First of all, they're always keeping the new models. Let them be the ones to buy the new cars.
They change their fleet over every year.
Right. The second thing is that every time you rent a car, you bring it back, that car is serviced. It's washed, it's cleaned, it's vacuumed, and if there's any problems with it, they're taken care of.
True.
And so when you buy a car from a rental entity, you're buying a car that has been taken care of a lot better than anybody normally takes care of their.
Well, tell us, how do the rental car companies sell their cars? I mean, if I wanted to buy one from a rental car company, how do I go about doing that?
Well, the best thing to do is just pick up the phone and call one of them and say, hey, I'm looking to buy cars, and they have their own divisions, and we're not going to name names, obviously, but they have their own divisions where they will put you in touch with that department, as it were.
Okay.
Now, I'm pretty confident that you don't get to haggle the price on those. You might, but as a general rule, and you're going to probably pay more than you would if you went to a used car dealership. Of course, they're never used, are they? They're pre-owned.
Correct.
But
Right. Well, okay, that's a great suggestion. Let me ask you this. You know, there's so many companies, organizations that have, they say if you buy your car through us, you'll get a better price on a brand new car. And you see that through companies like Sam's Club, Costco, AAA, and a number of organizations where you know it's like buy your car through us and you'll get a better deal. Is that true?
I wouldn't want I don't know. I do know that a lot of those outfits, they're buying blocks and they're negotiating discounts, and so they're passing discounts on to the customer. But my gut reaction is, depends on how good you are at haggling.
So if you're a good negotiator, you actually may do better
on your
in
own.
terms of buying
Because
on
you're
your own.
cutting out a middleman.
But the folks that don't want to haggle, they just want a price.
Right.
That may be
That's-
where they can
that's a
go to an
possibility as
organizational
well.
purchase. Okay.
And then ultimately, if you are going to buy a car that is pre-owned, unless you're getting it from a very well-known, reputable dealer, and there's commercials on this, but get a Carfax on it. I mean, make sure you have a report on what the car has been
Okay,
through.
so a Carfax is on a particular car that you've
Right.
narrowed down. So particularly if you're buying from a person,
Yes.
that would be important. But it would also be important with the dealership too. with
Especially a
used cars.
smaller dealership, one of the, and the key is that there are areas of the country where there is a tendency for cars that have been in situations, let's call them.
Well, in North Carolina, we've had a major flood
That's
where
right.
cars were flooded. That's a big no-no in terms of purchasing a
Yes.
vehicle. But there have been lots of other kinds of damaged cars. And of course, car titles are supposed to reflect if a car has been damaged more than half of its market value. But that may not be true.
Yeah, you know, it's called a salvage title, and I actually take advantage of this because the cars that I buy have reputations of just not falling apart at all. And
In other words, you do your research.
I do my research,
so-
but when you buy it's funny.
I mean, cars
Yeah,
do
yeah.
have a reputation for holding up, some better than
But
others.
I own two cars that were purchased pre-owned from a dealer. Actually, he was a parts dealer in California. And what happened was these were rental cars that had been wrecked and were totaled, but the damage itself wasn't horrible. It was exterior damage. They were still totaled. The dealer that I bought them from would repair them with full OEM part, authentic manufacturer's parts. They were in great condition, and I was getting them for a fraction of about 60% of their retail value as a pre-owned car. And I've owned two of them for 10 years now.
Okay.
I've
Well,
got
Mike, I would say, though,
160,000
that
miles I
you
put on
were,
them. And
you
they're-
were lucky. I mean, you were really lucky when you did that because so many cars that have been totaled and are put back together.
But I did my research.
Well, like I said, research is really important, but and sometimes buying a car anyway is luck. But you were taking a risk because oftentimes when cars are totaled and put back together, there are hidden problems that
Sure.
don't really come to light until after you get the car
No,
home
that's
and you've
true.
driven it for a few miles.
And again, the key here is that you also weigh against what you're potentially saving versus what the cost of repairs are.
Sure.
So we'll be back in a few minutes, and we'll pick
Talk
this up.
about some other
Yeah,
secrets.
Right. Stay tuned. Welcome back. So anyway, Bill, you know, we've been talking about buying, but are there any benefits that you can get after you've bought, like tax deductions? I mean, is even that possible?
Well, for anyone who drives business miles, in other words, any kind of miles. Now, you can also have deductions for charitable miles and the like, but for anyone who has any kind of business, big business, small business, hobby business, any type of business where you pay, in other words, taxes, do a Schedule C on your personal income tax return showing some business income, and to the degree that you drive business miles, there are deductions for anyone like that. And in fact, for those who plan to own a car for many, many years, and you know, many of us own a car for 10 years or more these days, and if we drive that car in business, we can have a pretty good deduction for those business miles. Now, in fact, I believe the deduction this year is 52.5 cents per mile, which means that if we drive 100 miles, then we have $52.50 in a tax deduction.
Right.
And of course, it's not unusual for someone to drive 10,000 miles. Well, that would be over $5,000 tax deduction for the year. Now, you cannot deduct commuting miles, that is, those miles from your home to your business. But once you're at your business, to the degree that you're driving more miles in order, you know, traveling salesman, or you're going to drive to rental properties or the like, you can take those as business deduction miles.
Now, we have to be a little bit careful because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you deduct miles, then you cannot also deduct expenses, but you do get
Correct.
to pick and
It's
choose.
one or the other. And
Right.
so for those businesses that want a bigger deduction faster, or they, for instance, know that they're going to buy a business vehicle and only keep it for 3 or 4 years, well, one way to do it for a business is to lease the vehicle, but you don't have to lease. You can purchase and write off as a business expense the cost of the car, whether you purchase it for cash or whether you purchase it over a 3, 4, 5, 6 year loan period. And so the interest on the loan would be a deductible expense for the car. But also all of the gasoline that you purchase, the oil changes, any repairs, new tires, plus the monthly cost of the purchasing the vehicle would all be a deductible expense. Now, if you want a huge deduction in 1 year, you've had a big year and you know that you're going to get hit hard on income tax if you don't have some big expenses. So you want to buy a vehicle or two in order to write that off. Well, unfortunately, it's difficult to do without buying a big vehicle. In other words, one that's over, I can't remember the poundage, but it's based on weight. In other words, you'd have to buy one of these big SUVs or a big truck in order to get that one-time $25,000 deduction, if you will, and then you depreciate the rest out. But the bottom line is there are many ways, and I would recommend for business folks to talk to their CPAs about the best way to deduct their vehicle. And it really depends to a great degree on how many miles you drive and whether or not you want to keep that vehicle and have a deduction for many, many years. And it varies with every family as to which technique will work best for them.
Now, of course, the one thing about the expenditure side of things is that you have to keep all those receipts.
Well, you do. Well, if you're doing mileage, you are supposed to keep a book, if you will, of where you drive and how many miles it is. And actually, there are some telephone apps that you can have today that helps you keep up with that. or you can use a scanner to scan in your receipts that make it far easier than it used to be for us in terms of keeping those records.
All right. Well, thanks. So, you know what? We're going to wrap this up in a minute, and we will be right back. Stay tuned. So, Bill, our secret today is?
Well, I think that the secret's going to depend on the buyer, because the buyers are different. But clearly, if you are good at negotiating, this is the place to do it. Be able to walk away from a deal, because that's the emotions talking.
And do your research.
Do your research. That's no question about it.
Okay. And I'm Mike Tove of AIN Services. Call me at 800-363-2296.
And I'm Bill Alexander. I'm the founding attorney of W.G. Alexander & Associate. We are a law firm that focuses on estate planning, elder law, and asset protection. I'd also invite you to join me on Saturday mornings at 11 o'clock for my radio show, Asset Protection Today, on WPTF 680 AM.
And before signing off today, I want to invite everybody to tune in 3 weeks for a very special guest that we're going to have.
We're excited about it.
Absolutely. So look forward to seeing you then. See you next week. Bye-bye.